Welcome to Goldfish on Games and Cover This Face-Off XL, where it's coming up to the summer of 1993 as we enter into June, which for some reason the publishers think that we should be outside and not playing games, so they've decided to scale things back. But the following magazines still have a few things for us to check out. In Amiga Format, See You Amiga, Amiga Action, The One for Amiga and Amiga Power. Fight! And let's start off with The One for Amiga, that graced us with a few discs and a smaller number of demos, but what will be a bit of a theme this month? Lots of PD. And their demo being for Nippon Safes Inc., which is an adventure game which we don't always get to see demos of. Now this one introduces us to the three main characters that you'll be playing in the full game, and we get to check out their intros, that if you're good, you can complete in less than 10 minutes, and it would be much quicker if it wasn't for the load times. And effectively, our job is to get them all nicked by the police. But then maybe that first guy, well, he might deserve it for trying to blow open a safe. Now the interface is simple enough with just an icon panel that will show up with the right mouse button, but it doesn't stay open, you have to hold the button down, which I found a little bit annoying. The puzzles, well, what we get to see aren't that complex. Pick up item, use item in the item shaped hole, continue. The second character, well, you barely even need to do anything at all to finish this one, just talk to someone and that's it. And amazingly, you don't even get to play as the final character, you play as someone else, with a bit of a convoluted puzzle that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, some true moon logic here, and then we get to see our last character dance and, well, that's it. Our first PD game is Tractor Beam, a game that I feel I should really enjoy as I have a soft spot for this thrust style games. And while the craft does move around nicely enough, attaching the tractor beam can be a little bit fiddly. When I was playing it before, it just would not attach at all. This time it seemed to be working a bit better, and it doesn't take much for you to screw up and destroy yourself. We need to drag the box from one side of the screen to the other, all while making sure it doesn't hit us or anything else but the water. Well, apart from those arrows, they're fine, as they will push us and the box around. Now as you go through the various levels, parameters will change, so the beam might be a bit longer but have less strength, or the gravity might be lower. It's an interesting game made in Amos, but I do think it needs a little bit more work for it to be a truly great one. Blaster, a vertical shoot 'em up that has some very Amiga looking enemies and graphics here. And it's actually not too much like a Euro shoot 'em up, as the baddies for the most part will go down quite quickly and there are lots of items to collect. Now you don't need to do anything to actually get them to show up, they will just come around from time to time. Now it might increase your firepower or give you auto fire. It might even double your ship so you have a second one that moves in the opposite direction, all while endless waves of baddies show up to really wreck our day. Now typically with a vertical shooter that lets you move up and down, it would leave you at the height you finished moving to. Here, well, it will try and push you back down the screen, which is really annoying when it starts to throw baddies at the bottom. So you have to keep tapping up if you want to try and keep in one spot, or just let yourself move right back down to the bottom. One of the nice touches of this is that you actually have a shield, and you're allowed to take a single hit, with a second one, well, yeah, obviously taking you out. But that shield will recharge over time, which I think worked really well. And overall, I think this was a good fun little PD shooter. Alien Bash, a top-down multi-directional shooter. Stop the prisoner. Presented in the most PD way possible, from random scene demo style effects to the odd voice sample. The goal? To run around and shoot at the weird bubbles, while also trying to save the people stuck behind the shields, that also need to be shot at. Just be careful not to shoot them. Instead, you'll have to walk over them. Now, death is extremely easy to come across, as those bubbles will take far more shots than you'd expect, and the bit in the middle of the screen, well, that can also be death. Thankfully, we aren't stuck with just this pea shooter, as there are capsules floating around that, as you might have guessed it, have to be shot to open up. The controls are basic, but decent for this type of game, particularly when you consider it's a single button joystick. As you hold down the fire button while moving, and you'll keep shooting, and you'll shoot in the direction you're moving in. But if you stop, and then hold down the fire button, you'll stay in that spot and then you'll rotate around. It's a fun game with loads of levels, even if it is a little bit harder than I might like. Coming to our demo rescue is Amiga Format, that across its single disc had two large demos. The first one is for Disposable Hero, and they decided the best way to show off this damn hard shooter is to give us a demo based on the second level. So not only will you get to see how difficult this game really is, you might even see later into the title playing the demo than if you had the full thing. And I have to say, for a regular 1MB Amiga, this game looked lovely. Now, it is quite Euro shooter in its gameplay, as we have spikes that will fly out of the roof and ground, and enemies that will take far more shots to take out than you'd really want to. But we can upgrade our weapons by landing at the domes. That will give us a menu that we can use to customize what weapons we have installed. But you are limited by how much power you are generating. Now, unfortunately, in this demo, some of the UI isn't quite in place, so it's not clear what you can and can't attach and how much energy you're using, but it does give you a number of weapons for you to experiment with, and it is quite a good demo, even if I didn't get all that far into it. For all I know, it might be the entirety of the second level, or it might just end around about the point that I kept dying. The second demo is for the B-17 Flying Fortress, an interesting flight sim that has you on a bomber, which means you're not going to be doing too much in the way of acrobatics. But you can just leave the demo to play itself, with various crew members talking to each other and highlighting the enemies that are showing up. But you can jump into any of the turrets and then take over. But it does mean using the keyboard to aim, which is a bit odd. Now, by default, the movements are quite large, making it extremely difficult to hit anything, which I believe is actually historically accurate. So in some ways, this is actually more fun to just jump around the various planes and watch them do their own thing. I would recommend playing this one on an A1200 or more powerful, as the poor 500, well, it's going to get pushed a little too far, with all those 3D models and animations going on, but I did have a lot of fun with it. We are halfway through the magazines as we check out Amiga Power, that across its single disc wanted us to check out 3 PD games as well as a single demo. And the first PD game is Biplanes, a game we've seen more than a few times before. This one does seem to be a bit of a go-to that the magazines pick when they got a little bit of space left on a disc, and want just to include one more thing. As it's small, simple and competitive, but with the added bonus that you can play this in single player if you don't have a mate to hand, even if the computer is a little brutal in how quickly it will shoot you down, as you have to try and take off, fly around the screen and then take out the other player that's also trying to do the same thing to you. It's not a great looking game, but it is functional, if a little difficult to play. But in all the times that I've tried this one out, I've never had all that much fun, if I'm being honest. The second game is Defender. Yeah, it's that same Blitz Basics 2 powered one that we've seen before. but it is an incredible recreation of that arcade game, but made in that beginner-friendly language that is incredible that it's running this game this fast, as we can zip around the screen at speed, trying to take out the aliens, all while trying to save the people. And you can see everything that's going on via the radar at the top. As a demo of what Blitz can do, it's a great one. Now, I've never been all that good at the original, and my lack of abilities with this version indicates that they did a real good job of nailing that gameplay. The last PD game for them is The Quest for Galaxia. A fancy title screen hides what is a basic take on Galaxians, which I'm sure we are all shocked to find out about. And while Defender can get away with being little more than a good arcade conversion, this feels a little lacking. But I think that's more just due to the original game also being a bit basic, at least by the standards of 1993. I really want power-ups or new wave styles or something more interesting to happen to keep me engaged. Yeah, the enemies fly down in a bit of an odd and unique way, spitting out their weird collection of bullets as they go, but it's not enough to make me keep coming back to it. Their demo is for Graham Gooch's Cricket. Now, we've seen later entries into the series, but this is the original. And much like the other demos, this one allows me to just let the computer play itself, and that way I don't have to play cricket, which is a good thing. Now, based on how long it took to play the match, this demo gives you far more than most other sports demos, that would usually stop after the first goal or after barely a few minutes of gameplay. Now here you get a chance to either throw the ball, or you can try and hit it. Now for what it is, it's a fine enough game. It looks really nice and it has some good effects going on, but it's really not something that I would want to play personally, but I can recognise a polished and well-made title. We're not going to escape the sports titles, as CU Amiga, well, they're going to give us 2 discs with a single program and a demo. And that software is for Hyperbook, the Hypermedia Engine, which is a fancy way of saying it's a software creation system, as it lets you design interfaces that can then trigger other things. Like you can make a storybook out of multiple parts with triggers at the bottom to change pages. Or you can even code up your own calculator that uses AREX macros to do the hard work. Now it's all driven via a simple drag and drop control panel interface, and you can add multiple pages with their own controls and details, with logic that will let you jump to different pages. Now it appears to be quite a complex program, and it could let you do a lot of fancy things, particularly with the use of the AREX scripting language, as I guess you could then control other programs or script other things in Workbench. So overall, it's quite fancy, and I can see it being really useful. Now their demo is for Goal, the third game by Dino Dini, and yeah, that's the kickoff developer. And it's sporting that same top-down view as the previous efforts, but with slightly larger characters, mostly as it can zoom in and out. Not smoothly, but it will jump between the different views depending on how much of the pitch it thinks you need to see. Now this isn't just a simple demo, it's actually a custom competition for CU Amiga, as there's increasingly more difficult scoring challenges for you to attempt, which for me, well, it meant I barely got off the second or third one. As this is one of those football games where the ball doesn't always stick to your foot, so moving around quickly in a direction means that you can very easily lose the ball. And if there's a way to play this game particularly well, I do not know what it is. As anyone that's seen me play sensible soccer knows, I am not a football person. So games like this really don't appeal to me. And this one, with its weird controls, even less so. As I swear the players have some weird momentum going on when they run around, which means it's very easy to run past the ball when you're expecting to run into it. It also just randomly picks the player that you're controlling and just puts a line underneath that makes it look as if they're floating in the air. but it does do some fancy things like that scaling that I talked about before, but overall I found this massively frustrating to play rather than fun. But based on the reviews that this title got, I guess I'm in the minority here. And finally we have Amiga Action, that across its 2 discs we got 5 PD games, but thankfully 2 demos. And the first one is a great game, Hired Guns. A demo that we've seen before, but it is such a great one, as we have this interesting area to explore that, as far as I'm aware, is unique to the demos. Now this is effectively a sci-fi dungeon crawler game, as we have the 4 views and the 4 characters that we can move around individually, or we can group them up by pressing the light on the side of the screen. Then whoever moves becomes the leader and the rest will follow. Now in the full game, you have to be close for this to work, but in this demo, I swear I managed to make some of the characters walk from entirely different levels, and resulted in them walking off a ledge and going into the drink. Combat is simple enough. Once you've selected a weapon via the store menu, you can then click in the middle of the screen to shoot at anything in front of you, with right click doing the reloading, that is if you have any spare ammo for it. Now one thing that is missing from this demo is the ability to sidestep. Here you can either move forward and backwards or turn around on the spot. I wonder if they got feedback from this demo and changed that. Now the map itself is decently sized, with lots of things to investigate, including an area with a teleporter, and walls that you can push to find extras. There's even a hidden bit at the beginning that will give you a brick? I'm not sure what that's useful for, but there's all sorts of psyamps to find and use, as well as enemies to attack. And why are there walking skeletons in my sci-fi shooter? The first bit of PD is for Deathbringers from Space, a vertical shoot 'em up that we've seen before. Well, a few times now to be honest, and it's a colourful, quick moving shooter, but then there really isn't much going on the screen, and it all feels a little basic. But that's not to say it's not a challenge, as those enemies will fire quite quickly, so if you're close to them, well, you're going to get taken out in short order. I've also felt that this was a good for a 5-minute game, but not one you're going to keep returning to time after time. Well, not unless you're having to check out every single cover disc ever released and you end up playing it multiple times. Donk. It seems they got around to renaming it since the last time I got to check out a demo for this game. And even the main menu artwork looks closer to the final thing. But our little Dougie protagonist, well, he's not quite right, as he has a sword now, rather than the claws that we've seen before, but no helmet yet. Now this might be the most collect 'em up game that ever collected them up, as in this demo, that's based on one of the later worlds, you have to find almost 100 gems, and you'll need to get every single one of them if you want to open up the exit, in an absolutely huge level. Even using the map to scroll around will take a while, and you've got walls that will turn on and off via switches that will either block or open up areas that you'll need to visit. Now it can be quite useful to try and plan out your route, as you don't want to collect all the gems and then find out that you've got a long slog to get to the exit. Typically you want to find the exit and leave just one gem next to it, so you'll collect all the rest and then come back to it. I did find it interesting that they had different music for when that timer started ticking down. In the final thing, it tells you how to cheat. In this one, well, it's just a jingle. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for this game, even when it was called Dong. Assault. Get ready! A simple shooting gallery PD game, where you have to quickly, and I do mean quickly, shoot at the targets that show up in any of the windows. Now this does not give you any time at all to spot and shoot them, because if you take too long, they will shoot you instead, and that is an instant game over. Game over, man! Now, this being a PD game, it had to be full of audio samples, as well as sound effects borrowed from other games, as well as characters borrowed from everything. Isolation, a multiplayer game that we've seen a few times. You take it in turns to move your coloured tile to a single square, and then you get to remove a square from the game. The goal is to make it so the other player cannot move at all. Now, it's not graphically fancy, but the rules make it fun enough to play, and I would have enjoyed it more if I had a computer opponent to play against. As playing against myself, well, it means I always lose. Amiga Q. This is a take on the peg solitaire style game, where you have to jump pegs over each other into empty squares, removing them from the board in the process, till you eventually end up with a single peg left. Now, I've never been particularly great at these types of games, and this one looks extremely basic. It's just blocks for graphics. But I guess this might have been someone's attempt to learn the Amiga UI system intuition, as it's running as a workbench program. Crazy Sue, a platformer that is basically just you need to find the key and make your way to the exit, all while trying to avoid absolutely everything. That includes stuff falling from the top of the screen and things running across the bottom. Now, this is one of those odd ones where you have to move far further over to the right hand side of the screen to make it scroll than it really should do, as I think it'd be far more useful to see what's coming up than what's behind you. Now, there are a few pickups as you go along, like this one that'll increase your jump, which is extremely useful and pretty much have to grab every single level. Now, amazingly, this was initially meant to be released as a full title, but they couldn't find a publisher, so it ended up on the Amiga Fun magazine, but eventually it was then just classed as PD. And in part, I get it. Like, there was 10 levels in total, which isn't huge, and it's possible to finish the entire game in under 20 minutes if you know what you're doing, and while it does look fine, it's not amazing, and in many ways it looks a bit like a lost C64 platformer. And there we have it, another month covered, but not a huge number of new games or PD titles, but I was able to pick out 3 games that I want to check out. In third place, I'm gonna say Nippon Safes Inc. I enjoy a good adventure game, so this one does interest me, and while the demo wasn't great, I still think it was enough to make me want to check out the full thing, even if I've heard questionable things about parts of it. In second, I have to give it to Donk. I know not everyone enjoys this one as much as I do, but it's an absolute favourite of mine, and this was a cool level. And it's interesting seeing the progression of the main character from the various demos to the final game. And in first place, well, it had to be Hired Guns really, didn't it? An amazing game, even if fighting skeletons in a sci-fi setting is a little weird. And as always, if you enjoyed these back in the day, or if there's any other games that you think I overlooked, let me know in the comments. And I'd like to thank my amazing Patreons, who help support the channel in so many ways. You lot are awesome. And if you'd like to join them for free, and get to see your name on the screen, as well as getting to see videos a week early and advert free, as well as getting the odd channel update from me, then you can find links in the description, or you can join us on our Discord. And until next time, I was the Goldfish, that was a lot of PD, 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 PD. And this was Goldfish on Games.